part of what sucks about Russell Brand going down this path is that he's done some really good work, in my opinion, in the past. I've seen him do stand-up live. Will not be doing that now because he's gone full Rumble pilled. He has some relationship with this venture capital Peter Thielite backed platform. He's got a show on it. And called Stay Free with a damn freaking like COVID-esque virus logo behind it. My God. Mm-hmm. Here he is speaking about free speech. What else? And he encourages his viewers to go to Rumble because some of what he says or he wants to say, he cannot say on YouTube.
And it brings about important questions. And these are the ones that I want you to answer. I want you to ponder along with us and then answer. Who has the authority? It's the same with free speech. If you don't agree with the principle of free speech, you have to conclude that there's some group, individual, or institution that has the authority to deny you your free speech. Who are you giving that authority to? Once our trust in institutions like government, media, and the corporate world has broken down, and I'm pretty sure that's where we are, then none of us are granting that consent, are we? So that's one of the things we're going to be talking about. Also, we're talking to Glenn Greenwald. What an exciting conversation to be having at this time. Glenn Greenwald, Pulitzer Prize winning journalist, radical advocate for free speech, radical critic of all political corruption wherever it's found, newly confronted continually by his old liberal establishment pals. Not that the liberal establishment would have ever been Greenwald's pals, but they've turned on him, haven't they? He's someone that faces a lot of attacks. He's a brilliant journalist. He's our friend over here on Rumble. We're honored to have him. And then once we flip off of YouTube, we'll be talking about censorship that so-called journalist, Matt Taibbi, talks about, like some vaccine side effect stuff that we just wouldn't be able to talk about on YouTube. On our item, here's the news. We're talking about January the 6th. You're going to absolutely...
Okay, so we're talking COVID, January 6th, free speech. I mean, hey, when are we going to be talking about critical race theory, Russell?
I just like that he also...
Yeah, okay. No, go ahead, Bradley.
No, I was just saying I like that. I like that he goes like, yeah, we'll get off just to talk about some, some back side effect stuff. Like very, very like offhand, like, But this is gotta get off YouTube so we can talk about some
This is the model that we've spoken about with the Daily Wire, with the Crowder Mug Club. Oh, yeah. Which is, they are different people in front of the paywall and behind the paywall. And it's all a funnel system. They go to YouTube, which has a broader audience, obviously. And this is also why Glenn's constantly tweeting about, sanctimonious liberals with as many adjectives as he can fit into his tweet. Because that's PR for getting behind the paywall. And the reason they're having this conversation, Russell and Glenn Greenwald, is because they're all being paid by the same corporate media daddy at the head of Rumble. And so with all the talk about...
I have to jump in there because Glenn is pretty
he's saying he's not getting
cagey
paid
about, the arrangement there. But yeah, I mean, he's certainly on all the promotional material.
I appreciate it. We don't know if he's getting paid, but they're both on Rumble and you can draw your own conclusions.
Which is a corporate entity.
Yes.
I'm at the Rumble terms of service page right now, and I'm just looking through the content that you are under no circumstances shall the following content be submitted to the Rumble service. And I'm looking and I see content or material that is pornographic, obscene, or adult in nature, content or material that promotes, supports, or incites individuals or groups which engage in violence or unlawful acts, including but not limited to, and I've never seen this group named in any terms of service before, Antifa groups and persons affiliated with Antifa, and then the KKK and white supremacist groups and or persons affiliated with these groups. I mean, they have their own content here. Can't put any content that libel or slanders anyone, which is very broadly defined, I guess, depending on where you are. So I don't know how they determine that. This is the free speech haven that they are flocking to, right? All these sites, like any other of these sites. In fact, they're more restrictive
I mean, this is the elite conception of free speech, which is that YouTube, instead of being sort of semi-responsible about what it lets go viral about, say, vaccine harms, which I would say are massively outweighed by the harms of the pandemic that Russell Brand has been downplaying. But that actually YouTube should be free, and that it's actually their free speech duty to monetize and carry all of that stuff and let it go as viral as possible, even though there's a pandemic killing millions of people. Now, who is the correct response? I don't like Department of Homeland Security being involved in this, but I do think the CDC has some role to say like, hey, this is our best understanding of this novel virus right now. Here's some guidance about what you let go viral. And like, I would say this idea that like, there's so-called true things about vaccine harms. I've talked about this with people before. There are like rare instances of vaccine harms, but there is an interest for these platforms not to let that stuff go viral because it creates an unwarranted impression about this actual public health problem that investors of things like Rumble want us to downplay. Go ahead.
And this is a very libertarian conception of free speech, one that is provided to the public through a filter of what the corporation wants to see. It's just that this corporation is friendly to us as opposed to the YouTube corporation, which is less friendly to us. Like, I mean, leftists have a broader conception of free speech, one that is more critical of, say, government censorship. You have the right to free speech under the First Amendment, but that does not preclude companies from having content moderation things. And like, it brings me back to, how the preponderance and the continued obsession with campus culture being authoritarian and cracking down on the free expression of thought, when in reality, all it is that the professors or the speakers at these colleges that want to be immune from criticism are pushing this idea because they're unable to win in the marketplace of ideas. Like, their ideas for young people are not winning the popular vote. So they've got to rig the marketplace in their favor by essentially claiming, hey, this is rigged against me. And so, like, that's kind of the shallowness of these arguments. Go ahead, Brandon.
No, I mean, I've yet to hear, and all the time that the free speech, the radical free speech right has been, trumpeting this argument online, because it's always online. Like, I've yet to hear a compelling argument about like why YouTube is a free speech zone. Like, it doesn't make sense if you know how YouTube functions. It doesn't make sense if you know how they make their money. It doesn't make sense if you understand how ads work, if you understand how like subscribers work, if you understand how like an algorithm work. It just doesn't make any sense. And it always comes back to the same thing. People who are afraid of losing their status position, who have chosen to have careers that require you to work on a platform that is not your own, that you have no equity in, and therefore you have no way to like affect content moderation rules except for in a very sort of like informal, vocal, like, idea spreading way. And B, the just complete fear of losing access to your, livelihood, which they kind of couple together with like a lazy understanding of like leftist ideals around like, economic freedom in terms of people shouldn't be, beholden to jobs. But it's all just like, you're running a business shoddily. You have a shoddy product, probably, especially considering a lot of the people who are promoting vaccine truths now were promoting ivermectin and promoting the cure of the weak because, the clout culture doesn't mix well with like science, because science can move slowly. Science requires a lot of peer review, and clout culture moves very quickly. It's like, what can we talk about today? How can I be on the the leading edge of this conversation, even if the work itself is not up to par? And from just someone who watches a lot of like YouTube scam stuff, I don't think YouTube's content moderation is strong enough. That's why the SEC is sending out all these notices to people. Yeah, because like if you stop paying attention to people who want to push like vaccine skepticism online, or like just outright like Nazism, you see that there's a whole swaths of YouTube that is just like full of crimes, full of people pumping like, securities fraud, full of people like advocating for Ponzi schemes, like openly. YouTube does the very bare minimum of content moderation to keep itself out of trouble. And I think a lot of these people just don't like that this company is not going to put itself out for like, maybe if you were Kim Kardashian and it was Instagram will put itself out on the line for you. But, if you're not bringing in that level of attention to your site, like you're ultimately you're fungible, not to borrow that's a workplace word, but that's just, it is what it is.
And this is ultimately about marketing Rumble as this open place, as opposed to it's all overstated. And I've been got penalized by YouTube because of what it perceived as anti-vax stuff from us. And to me, it's like, yeah, that's like the position these anti-vax assholes have put this giant corporation in. And like, it's not true that you can't discuss this stuff at all. You just have to do it responsibly. And I think that requirement isn't like so insane to me. And so like Dr. Susan Oliver is an example on YouTube who will talk about things like how rare these things are, but put in the context of a public health effort. And she doesn't go viral like charlatans that Russell prefers, like Brett Weinstein or Joe Rogan's freaks, because those people ultimately are harvesting anxiety. They're cultivating and harvesting anxiety for their own profit. And they're not, this idea that they're actually doing some sort of dispassionate, skeptical eye on the science is laughable to anybody who actually does that thing.
And just quickly, Brandon, to go off your point, because I didn't want to lose it, like they literally did, Twitter literally did this for Trump in the way you described the Kim Kardashian thing. We learned this through Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's questioning during these ridiculous congressional hearings, where they altered their terms of service multiple times to accommodate Trump, who had violated the terms of service because he was one of the most followed people on Twitter. People spoke about his tweets and how he spoke off the cuff. He became synonymous with the brand and was bringing traffic to Twitter. The only time they flipped on it and ended up stopping accommodating him was when, January 6th happened.
I think it was Facebook where this came out, where they did a study to determine why more, right-wing users were being affected by its policies, were being subject to like bans or suspensions, and it's because they were the ones most likely to break Facebook's policies and rules and harass people and stuff. And then Facebook admitted basically that they pulled back on actually going through with their policies on these users because they were worried of the blowback from Republicans. They literally changed how they acted on their very own policies due to fear of blowback from right-wing politicians.
Well, I mean, they probably would have gotten blowback, but that's not the same thing as, protecting free speech. That's, I think same thing with Trump being left on Twitter. Some people would say, well, he's the president, so why, isn't it in the public interest to have, for him to have access to this platform? It's like, no, of course not. He has access to any platform he might want through multiple different channels because he is the president. This is just a craven business decision. And, I don't think it does anyone any favors. And it's definitely not leftist position to pretend like private companies can be accountable to public ideals without actual regulation or enforcement. But it definitely soothes the ego if you are piggybacking off the Twitter platform to promote your business, to pretend like it can. But they'll turn your information over to the police with no warrant. We've seen that. And so that's just, to me, one reason you should not convince people this is a free speech platform. It's not the kind of platform you should be, I don't know what the word I'm looking for is, let's just say, coordinating activism in a way that is not, considerate that people will be looking into your DMs. It's not good to teach people that these sites are something that they're not,
Yeah.
I mean, and this is in the context of, TikTok CEO hauled in front of Congress today.
We'll get to that in a sec.
And you got Josh Hawley saying, what's he saying? He's red baiting Chuck Schumer as basically a Chinese Communist Party asset. And also Jamal Bowman, who said maybe they stopped short of saying we should ban TikTok, which I think look, I don't like any of these things spying on me, but I'll be honest, the Chinese spying on me is honestly less troubling to me than American governments and Peter Thiel's fucking weird ass spying on me, because that's more that's closer in proximity and can actually do something. So that's all this stuff about moderation is and de-amplifying fucking Alex Berenson is the threat to free speech, I think is a fucking joke.
Let's do this TikTok.
Come on.
So,
where's that in the Constitution? That's not in the Constitution. That's not in the Bible. Come on.